Alright, Jak and Daxter fans, no, you're not dreaming. We do have some new information to talk about. This doesn't happen very often, but when it does, oh, you can bet your bottom booty we are sucking on the teat of the Jak and Daxter news source. Jak and Daxter: The Lost Frontier is coming to PlayStation 4 and 5. Why this one? No, who do I need to talk to? Who's making these calls? Why this one? The Lost Frontier? The Lost Frontier? Bro, give me I don't know, Microsoft Solitaire PlayStation Edition over this garbage. What is this? It smells like shit. Oh, it tastes like shit too. So most people in the Jak and Daxter community don't even consider this game to be a Jak and Daxter game. Most don't even consider it to be canon to the overall story. This is, of course, because it was not developed by Naughty Dog. It was meant to be a continuation of after the events of Jak 3 and Jak X. However, because of the severe lack in quality of this game compared to the Naughty Dog crafted Jak and Daxter games, most people took an absolute disliking to the game. It's interesting though, because Daxter was a game that came out before The Lost Frontier, that wasn't developed by Naughty Dog, that was a PlayStation Portable exclusive. It was a spin-off title revolving around Daxter's time in Haven City, following Daxter's time in the city while Jak was in prison. And this is a fantastic Jak and Daxter spin-off game, considering also it's not developed by Naughty Dog, it was developed by Ready at Dawn Games. They did an absolutely phenomenal job. High Impact Games are the guys responsible for The Lost Frontier. I don't straight up hate High Impact Games. I think what they did with at least looking at Ratchet and Clank, they managed to develop 2 Ratchet and Clank games, Size Matters and Secret Agent Clank. Secret Agent Clank wasn't that great, but Size Matters, I didn't mind. I know that this game does certainly have its own fair share of problems, and it's certainly not to the same degree as the original Insomniac developed Ratchet games, but still, I enjoyed it, certainly more so than I did The Lost Frontier. Because of the sheer hatred towards The Lost Frontier, I never would have assumed that this would end up being released on PlayStation's classic lineup for PS4 and PS5. Especially not before Daxter comes to the service, which is, without a doubt, objectively the better game between the two. It boggles my mind too, because seeing such an awful game like this being added to the PlayStation Classics lineup, it really makes me think, like, who is the one responsible making the calls, making the decisions as to what gets added to this lineup. The PlayStation Classics lineup has lacked ever since it was first introduced back in 2019. This was meant to be a new initiative by PlayStation to offer PlayStation Classic games, mainly looking at PS2 games, onto the PlayStation Store. It was mentioned in the original blog post announcing this new thing that basically classic games would be added on a regular basis. And there for a while, for the first year of this, there was sort of this regular update of having new PlayStation 2 games released onto the PlayStation Store. It was pretty okay. Then a year passes, and this service starts to slow down and down and down. Not too long ago, we got a complete revamp to PlayStation Plus, offering new tiers to the system. The PlayStation Premium tier offering the Classics lineup of games. This kind of gave us hope that, okay, because now there is a specific tier that now offers classic PlayStation titles, surely Sony's focus on introducing new PlayStation Classics to be able to be played on PS4 and 5 will increase tenfold. I mean, they're getting extra money to allow players to play these games. They need to start offering them at a more regular rate. And admittedly, I will say that since the revamp to PlayStation Plus has happened, looking at more so PSP titles, there have been a lot that have been added, even PS1 titles. I still think the consistency of these, and certainly looking at the quality of these classic games, is lacking. The decision making towards what games are getting added is very questionable. Generally, it's just some hot garbage that no one asked for, especially when we're looking at Jak and Daxter: The Lost Frontier. Oh my god. You guys know me, I love Jak and Daxter. It's one of those video game franchises that make me dribble like a village idiot. But because of just how bad this game is on literally every single level, looking at the level design, looking at the narrative, looking at the gameplay, it quite honestly just simply does not, aside from the characters, and even them we're sort of pushing it because they all look very strange. This game does not resemble a Jak and Daxter game in the slightest. And so because of this, I have never finished this game. It is that bad. It is pain. I tried to go through it about a year ago live on Twitch, and I had to call it quits early on. I would rather put bamboo under my big toe and kick a door. I would rather eat a cement sandwich. I would rather have a shower with my socks on. I would rather put my dick in a vice grip. Okay, maybe not that. That, we're sort of pushing it here. You get what I'm trying to say though. This game just ain't it. It really makes you question though, like, why is it so difficult for Sony, specifically looking at their first party titles from the PlayStation 2 era and even PSP, to have them re-released onto this service. I'm mainly talking about like the classic Ratchet and Clank games, the Sly Cooper games, and in this case, Daxter over Jak and Daxter: The Lost Frontier. People should know that it's not as easy as Sony just deciding, okay, game A, B, C, D, E, I'm going to put from PS2 over onto the classics lineup. Because if it is third-party related and not actually owned by Sony, it means that they then have to seek the rights to be able to redistribute the game onto the PlayStation Store. In regards to first-party titles though, the ownership is completely within Sony's hands, and it's just a matter of making a call to port those games so that they are playable on PS4 and 5. So again, I ask, why haven't we seen Sly, Ratchet, even like God of War? This is a really surprising one because even to this day, God of War is like one of their most successful IPs of all time. There is a rumor circulating that Sony are looking at remaking at least the first two God of War games. And so because of this, Sony probably think to themselves there's no real point in re-releasing the classic versions of these games as part of the classics lineup. Still though, even though we have games like looking at Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core Reunion, dude, I would love to still be able to play that classic PlayStation Portable version. Chuck it on to the classics lineup. Even looking at the old Spyro and Crash games, this is a bit of a different scenario as Sony most certainly do not have the rights to either of those games at this point. And yes, they probably would need to seek permission from Activision now in order to redistribute those classic games that released on PlayStation 1 all those years ago onto the classics lineup. But even though we've got Reignited Trilogy and the Insane Trilogy, I'd still love to be able to play the PlayStation 1 versions of those on my current PlayStation system. It's just been an apparent thing that for such a long time, the classics lineup for PlayStation games has severely lacked. Game preservation is so important, especially if that all-digital future thing is going to happen, and because also that buying these classic games physical to actually play on the original hardware costs a fortune. Some of these games go for ludicrous prices. It is, I believe, the responsibility of companies like Sony and like Microsoft and Nintendo to be able to offer a lot of their first-party classics that they have the ownership to as part of an online service for easy accessibility. I will say that, like, looking at Xbox, they've been doing an amazing job at the backwards compatibility side of things. Though this service has now ended, I don't believe they're making any more developments on any more backwards compatibility. There is a wide range of the classic Xbox library that you can play on modern Xbox systems. I think Sony seriously need to start taking some notes about what Microsoft have done for Xbox for PlayStation. While we're on the classics topic too, it was recently discovered that a company known as Implicit Conversions are the guys responsible for bringing classic games to Sony's classic service. On their LinkedIn page, it did originally mention that they're working with the guys behind PCSX2, a PlayStation 2 emulator, the best one out there currently available, to bring more PlayStation 2 games to PlayStation 5. This description was quickly revised as different media outlets started to catch on, and has since been changed to, currently we are working with clients to bring NES, PS1, PSP, and PS2 games to the PS4, PS5, Switch, and Xbox, Some of our partners and publishers include Disney Interactive, Bandai Namco, Square Enix, Konami, Capcom, Team 17, and Ben Studio. Now, these are the guys that have been working on those ports of the classic games that we see a part of the classics lineup on the PlayStation Store since 2019. But it's good to know that actively, as of right now, they are currently working on bringing more of those classic games to the service. But just considering, right now, there are only 24 PlayStation 2 games available on the PS Store is wild to me. And again, this is something that needs to change. Hopefully, this starts to ramp up in the next coming years. And also, trophy support towards these old classic games is great. It's great to see a lot of these PSP games getting trophy support. I'm only assuming Jak and Daxter The Lost Frontier will also have trophy support too, as a lot of the currently available PSP games do have trophy support. That's great. Alright guys, that's all for today. Am I excited for this game to come to the service? No. Will I play it? Yep, probably. For again, curiosity's sake, to maybe try drag my ass through the game without giving up after about like 2-3 hours. I'm even surprised I last that long. Let me know your thoughts and opinions about this, especially the topic of the classics lineup on PlayStation. I'd love to know what you guys think. However, dudes, I'm Cynical. Hopefully having a fantastic day. Be sure to subscribe to the channel to keep up with all the latest. Check out my other social media platforms. Big thanks to my patrons. You guys are amazing. I'm Cynical. Hopefully having a good one, and we'll talk real soon.